I want you all to know, without a shadow of a doubt, as we proceed with this particular session of J Hall, the Janis Hall, the J Hall World Report, that there are a lot of things that are going on in the country of France. And in that's going on, one of the things that we're very, very concerned about is the story of a young woman. Well, in this particular case, she's 73 years old, but receiving a number of head injuries when paramedics were attempting to evacuate veteran activist Legay from a demonstration. She was bleeding from the head. So I want to talk. 73-year-old Geneva Legay suffered very serious head injuries. Good evening, and thank you so much for being with us tonight, Janice. I want to cover that as that's happening right. All this violence is happening in France, and no one's really talking about it.
Yeah, that's right. We're all so concerned about the Mueller report, but we don't really hear about what's going on in France, and the situation over there isn't good. And just there's been a lot of injuries, and this is one. I pulled it out because this elderly lady sustained some massive injuries. But she's not the only one. People have lost eyes. People, I think, have actually died. There's been a lot of injuries over there, and not just the, I got serious bodily injuries happening here, and which resembles more of a war zone situation than just so. And nobody's talking about it, and this is continuing.
Now, what exactly are they protesting that's drawing so much violence? I mean, is it that they are giving up a retirement or something? What exactly are they protesting?
So my theory is that we're beyond protesting any specific policy. Okay. So Macron, I mean, originally all this started from oil.
Yeah.
Or, gas prices going up. Gas tax. Okay. So people were very unhappy about that. And let's be honest, the French have a pretty, they like protesting a lot. They do it very often. So
they protest protesters.
Right. So this is not like it's an old phenomenon. Or, I mean, it is an old phenomenon. So, but Macron basically gave in to them and said, okay, all right, we won't do this extra tax, it's fine. So you would have thought that everything was paid, but that is not the case. So now, several months later, they're still protesting, and the situation is actually becoming more violent than less so. And I think that at this point, you're basically seeing what happens when a population becomes just really angry and disillusioned, and basically believes that the democratic system doesn't work anymore. This is what happens. And I mean, we sort of talked about it last week, when if you lose faith in the democratic process and you don't believe it works anymore, then really the only recourse left is violence. And I think to some degree that's sort of what's happening in France. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see this eventually happening in other countries. But the point is that they're getting leaders and they're being governed by people that essentially they don't believe that they have. Now you have a lot of really angry people. So I think that's more what this is. I think that this is going to stay. I think that the protesters and I think the violence is probably going to stay. A lot of this is, I mean, basically Macron thinks that this wouldn't be the first person, but he basically thinks that he can use force to control the situation, which is why things are getting out of hand. And he's basically trying to forcefully dissipate the protesters because they're not going away. And I think this is what happens when you don't listen to the protesters and you don't listen to your public for years and years and years, and you just do what you want, and then eventually, one of these days, they're not going to go away.
Yeah.
And this is what happens when they don't go away.
Maybe that's a warning for Congress. I gotta ask you.
It should be a warning for all Western countries.
See, that's what I'm talking about. I want to talk with you also about Libya. And it was a surprising thing that took place. It's amazing what happened to Europe when they opened the gate. Well, at least when Germany opened the gate to Europe, and the number of people from the Middle East just started flooding into, and from Northern Africa into Europe. But apparently, something took place last week with a cargo ship. And it may be boding in terms of the future of those who are attempting to enter Europe. If you could tell us all about that.
Yeah, so what happened was some migrants were trying to, make the crossing in the Mediterranean and had issues. They were rescued by a cargo ship. Okay, there's nothing hugely odd about that story so far. Happens plenty. Well, what ended up then happening is they would try to go to Malta to essentially drop them off, and they said, no, you cannot come. So then the cargo ship basically was going to take them back to Libya, where essentially one would presume they'd come from. And the migrants at this point said, nope, that we are not doing that. We will just hijack and commandeer this vessel and go where we want to go.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. I was
going to say it's not actually that amazing.
Taking your cargo ship, you went to help them, and they took your ship. But is Europe finally saying enough is enough, or is this just a microcosm, one small incident, or is this Europe saying enough? We've had our fill.
So I think Europe is trying to say that, but they're doing it in a very soft way. The image that comes to mind, so I love Willy Wonka. I don't know if this is going to make it to other people understand this reference, but someone's doing something they shouldn't. One of the kids, Willy Wonka goes, no, don't, stop. Which, of course, the child doesn't listen to him. It's not like, oh my gosh, no, don't stop. Anyway, no, it's like, just no, don't stop. No. And, yeah. They're saying, no, don't stop, but they don't really mean it. Or even if they do mean it, they don't want to, they don't. They're not being mean about it. They don't want any confrontation over it.
Exactly.
They're just saying, don't.
Yeah, don't. I love
if you could just maybe not, please. That would be great.
I love the Willy Wonka reference there. Janis Hall with us tonight, J Hall World Report. I want to talk with you about violence in France, because that's just too real. Let's talk about comedy, a comedy of errors. It's called Brexit. And apparently now it's Parliament's turn to come up with an idea by April 12th, or it's all over. If you could talk with us about what's happening. It's just a comedy of errors, in my opinion, but if you could tell everybody what's happening.
Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure what Parliament thinks that they were supposed to be doing for the past couple of years. Yeah, you're right. It's a complete comedy of errors. They had a whole bunch of... So they've got an extension Which I would just like to say that, yeah, March 9th comes, they're still in the EU. We talked about this last week.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the week before. We did talk about this, and I
We
think
talked
this is what
about
happened.
it.
Okay, just want to point that out. So we basically have a situation where they put a whole bunch of bills, a whole bunch of suggestions, and none of them pass. So and May, and this is okay, this is the part that I love. This is just great. May goes, I'll
Such great poor leadership. I am willing to step away, um, but you got to do what I tell you to do. It's amazing. Brexit,
yeah.
Brexit. We're looking at. It's going to be a hard Brexit. Am I correct? It just point in point. It's just going to be a hard Brexit at this point.
If it happens at all, yeah. Well, yeah, probably. Well, I mean, the truth is that nobody actually wants a solution, right? The Remainers still want to remain. The Leavers want to leave. Nobody wants some middle ground road. And I mean, I'm not even going to say that the middle road is the way that they should go. I mean, should we maybe revoke Article 50 so that we don't have this deadline? Well, you couldn't do it with a deadline over 2 years, so I'm not entirely sure why you think you'll be able to get it done without a deadline. So,
is it an embarrassment to be British right now?
well, it's definitely an embarrassment to be in British Parliament, it seems.
Want to talk with you about Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Yay! There was no collusion. Were you shocked?
No.
No shock there. However, Vladimir Putin has started to send his forces into Venezuela. Donald Trump says, get the heck out. Are we running into a problem here?
Possibly. Okay, so I have mixed feelings on this. One
Whoa!
is I do. I have mixed feelings. Okay, one is I kind of just want to be okay, Russians, fine. You think you can deal with Venezuela? You have a good time with that. Okay? Because that's a mess. All right. And then on the flip side, essentially this hemisphere has always sort of been under our influence, right? So everything in North America and everything in South America, we've been the dominant actor in it. And this is one of the reasons why the Cuban Missile Crisis happened, was because we didn't like Russia interfering in the Americas. And it does, in general, send a bad message to allow, foreign intervention, military intervention, from the outside. So I don't like that. I think that I feel like this is one of those situations where it probably would have been good to have done some back channeling, talk to Russia, figure out what the pain points are here. It doesn't have to be a big military crisis. It doesn't have to be a flashpoint. It doesn't have to be it just doesn't have to be that between the US and Russia. But that hasn't happened. And so now we have the Russians essentially sending in advisors to assist Maduro.
Yeah.
And so now that sort of does put the US in kind of a rough place, because you don't necessarily want to escalate it, right? But at the same time, you don't really want the Russians to be there either.
Exactly. Will Vladimir relent? Will he say, listen, this is just an idea of us getting our people out of here and protecting our investments per se, and we'll leave and let the U.S. handle this particular matter, or are we down for the cause?
I mean, I guess what I would like to see the U.S. and Russia work together for a
Mm-hmm.
solution. I mean, like I said, there's no real reason why we have to be adversarial about it.
Yeah.
I imagine that part of this is probably that Russia just sort of wants to stick its nose at the U.S. over
Mm-hmm.
it, because relations have been not great now for quite a while. So I don't really blame them. I can understand wanting to do that. Um, so you know me. I like to
Yeah.
advocate lots of different, depending on the situation, requires different responses.
Exactly.
I think that this one's diplomatic. I think it's should, back channeled. I think that there probably is a quieter, more nuanced solution to this problem.
Yeah. I gotta ask you here.
And
Uh,
I
uh,
would like that we could do that, though I don't have a lot of optimism about it.
Exactly. Is this payback for Syria? Just want to know. Is this payback for Syria?
Might be a little,
Yeah.
might be a little, or Ukraine.
Oh, you. It's one of the two. One of the two.
I would
Janice
say
Hall.
I would be more inclined for Ukraine, but
A little bit of Crimea for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Janice Hall, the J Hall World Report. It is always a tremendous joy having her here on Wednesday nights at 10:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Janice, we love you. Smooches. We will see you next week.
yes, you will. Good night.
All right. Good night. Janice Hall, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, I will tell you all that there is nothing better than the commercials that we play, and we want you to enjoy those commercials. Coming up, we'll be back to talk about the economy, Donald Trump, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.